Her Royal Highness seems to be angry. Volume 1, Chapter 1, An Unknown World, Part 3. The carriage continued to advance along the stone-paved road. Before long, it reached a vast ground with magnificent buildings, an elegant main entrance, majestic buildings, and a beautiful garden. This must be Lucrezia Academy. That sense of wasteful extravagance again. Well, I give up. As she descended from the carriage, which had stopped before the entrance hall of the foremost building, she couldn't help but make such a remark to herself. Well then, I'm in the academy. But now... Lucrezia Academy's entrance hall was decorated with chandeliers hanging down from its high ceiling, a carpet covering its marble floor, and several beautiful flags on its walls. Standing imposingly in that entrance hall was an expressionless Leticiel, muttering something. To others, she looked like an unapproachable, cold lady standing there calmly, but in reality, she was simply at a loss. Leticiel didn't have a single memory as Drosel. In other words, this was her first time coming to this academy. There was no way for her to know where to go in order to take lessons. Those people are... Looking around restlessly, she found a group of adult males with attires different from the other students in the corner of the hall. Unable to contain her curiosity, she began observing the group. She then noticed that, for some reason, every student would greet the group when passing by. All the students here are children of aristocrats. For these students to greet them means that they were people in high positions. Leticiel thought that they would be able to tell her the location of her classroom if she asked them, and ran up to the group. You are? Good morning. I just wanted to ask you a question. Where should I go now? Leticiel was standing next to the brown-skinned, muscular man with short blonde hair who was standing in the center of the group. He turned towards her and knit his eyebrows at her question. Huh? You're in elementary too, right? Just go there. Leticiel stared blankly at the astonished man after he answered. She really wanted to say, I'm asking you because I don't know where the classroom is in the first place, but held back, knowing it would be impossible to get an answer with this mood. Leticiel then walked towards the school map on the wall. It appeared that the school building was 3 stories high and formed a quadrangle around an enclosed courtyard. Seeing a list with names of classrooms she had never seen before on each story, Leticiel started blinking. Hey, don't tell me you really don't know where your own classroom is. It was supposed to be just a prank, right? And what if I told you I really don't know? As Leticiel studied the map, the man's patience had begun to run thin. With an irritated tone, he shot her a question to which she replied without hesitation, as if questioning why he would even assume that. The entire group was taken aback with dumbfounded looks on their faces from her reply. Your younger sister is in the same class, so you can just go with her, right? Oh my, that's a splendid idea. Ignoring his considerably astonished tone, Leticiel nonchalantly clapped her hands after hearing his suggestion. Ah, elder sister Drosel. As if on cue, Krista frantically ran up to Leticiel from the front entrance. Since Leticiel's carriage had passed her earlier, she had arrived after her older sister. What in the world was that carriage earlier? I have never seen one moving that fast. Perfect timing, Krista. For some reason, I've forgotten the way to the classroom. Could you go together with me? After making a slight bow towards the man who gave her the suggestion, Leticiel briskly walked away from the scene without waiting for Krista's answer. Although Krista was in a fluster after having her words cut off, she made a similar bow to the man and chased after her older sister's figure. Having missed the timing to ask anything by the time she caught up, Krista was walking slightly ahead while taking a glance back once in a while. All she saw was Leticiel acting as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Leticiel decided not to talk about the incident with the carriage from the morning. Since she still didn't have a solid grasp of the current situation, she could not afford to let anything slip through her careless mistakes. This is our classroom, Krista announced that while looking at Leticiel with a frightened and bewildered gaze. In front of the two was a door with a plate that said Elementary 2. Standing before the classroom, they looked at each other in awkward silence. This sensation, it resembles the silent moment I had with Ruvik back in the residence. Drossel, why? I just forgot it for some reason. Please, don't mind me. Oh, okay. After insisting on her excuse, Leticiel opened the door without any hesitation. Countless gazes inside the classroom focused on the door. However, once they saw the figure of Leticiel, they all instantly vanished, replaced by countless whispers. Hey, the ice demon is here. That appearance, that ice-cold expression, how ominous. Some looked away, as if to not meet her eyes. Some stared at her, as if to insult and belittle her. Some glared at her, as if she was the sworn enemy of their parents. Leticiel nonchalantly entered the room under all those hostile reactions. For the current Leticiel, the emotion called sadness had disappeared somewhere. She could only brush it off with a simple musing along the lines of, "Geez, why is everyone looking at me?" Her carefree mindset had become terminal. "Good morning, everyone." Unlike Leticiel, who was wondering what she should do after entering the room, Krista greeted her classmates with a lovely smile. Now that I think about it, although she's my little sister, why is Krista in the same class? Perhaps we are twins? Or we were born in the same year? Well, it doesn't matter. Hey, Drossel, Noah, Filia Regis. Leticiel was blankly staring at Krista, but shifted her gaze to the unamused voice from behind her younger sister. The source of that voice was a youth with mint-colored hair and crimson eyes that seemed to be burning. Those razor-sharp eyes, mixed with scorn, gave off an air of being strong-willed. "Thank you for your politeness." She was genuinely thanking him for telling her her full name. However, the boy made a foolish face when he was thanked out of the blue. Your Highness Rochefort." Although she was a bit surprised with his sudden appearance, Krista called out to the boy, "Having the title, Your Highness, attached to his name must mean that this impertinent person is the prince of this country." Leticiel silently prompted Rochefort from annoying person to troublesome person in her mind. She then realized that there were several boys standing behind Rochefort. Since they're also glaring over here, they're probably the prince's followers. In other words, they must have high statuses as well. There's only trouble from getting involved with them, so I should try my best to not. Hey, are you listening? Since Rochefort's deep voice had interrupted her train of thought, Leticiel slightly knitted her brows and looked at him. "My apologies, I was not paying attention." "What? You dare act like that in front of me? Your fiancé?" Leticiel was amazed from the bottom of her heart that Rochefort would be so furious even though she had given a proper apology. However, of all his words, there was one that got her attention more than his anger. Fiancé. He really did say that. "Your Highness, please, give it a rest." "Krista, sorry, I lost my cool there. But when I heard your beautiful and gentle voice, even my anger clears away." "Geez, don't put it like that, Your Highness." "Krista." Before Leticiel's very eyes, Rochefort was looking at her younger sister with an enraptured gaze, while Krista's cheeks were dyed red with embarrassment. He was clearly showing amnesty towards Drossel while showering Krista with affection. And on top of that, Krista didn't seem to dislike it herself. He is brazenly having an affair right in front of his fiancée. This is the current me's, fiancé? Leticiel's previous partner had been a kind man who only loved her, but it seemed like she had no luck with both her family or partner in her current life. Oh well, don't care about it, so let's just not get involved. Although she should deal with the fact that Rochefort and Krista were still lost in each other's eyes, Leticiel ignored them to look for an empty seat and found one in the very last row. "Is this seat empty?" Yes! Leticiel's question made the brown-haired girl sitting next to the empty seat jump and let out a shrill voice. She wondered why the girl was so scared of Drossel, but immediately lost her interest. Leticiel then sat down and faced the front of the room, but for some reason, Rochefort and his followers were glaring straight at her. She became very confused. She had the courtesy to ignore the fact that he and Krista had been in their own world, but his group was still dissatisfied for some reason. However, even then, she immediately lost interest and looked away from Rochefort's group. Shortly after the sound of a bell echoed throughout the academy, the teacher for the first period entered the classroom. His belly jiggled as he walked into the room. The middle-aged teacher with a shining scalp stood before the podium. "History class will now begin." It seemed that the first period is history. Since she didn't know the exact time period she was in, Leticiel silently opened her textbook and started reading while ignoring the teacher's lesson. The girl sitting next to her was looking at her with a dubious face, as Leticiel had not even once opened the textbook during history class. But Leticiel, who was rummaging through the textbook in earnest, didn't notice. "Then, please open the textbook to page 60. Ignoring the teacher's voice and the sound of pens from around her, Leticiel was completely absorbed in her textbook. The Platina Kingdom was the third most powerful country in the Australia continent. Leticiel secretly breathed a sigh of relief after finding out that it was the same continent as the one she lived in. The kingdom's history spanned over 1,000 years, and it was currently in an alliance with its neighboring country, the Iris Empire. Back in Leticiel's age, the average life of a country was around 60 to 70 years. Only powerful countries lasted longer than 100 years. This meant that the world had become peaceful. Before the founding of the Platina Kingdom, countless countries had continued to wage bloody wars to unite the Australia continent. Perhaps that was the age that Leticiel had lived in. This long warring period was called the Australia Continental War, and as a reference to when it had started and how long it had lasted, it was also called the 1,000-Year War. Leticiel suddenly felt something on her shoulder. When she looked up from the textbook and to her side, she saw the girl sitting next to her had tapped on it. "Miss Drossel, did you hear what I was saying?" Reacting to the voice, Leticiel looked forward to find the teacher, who was holding his textbook with one hand looking at her. From her angle, his head was shining brilliantly due to the classroom's light. No, it was better not to go beyond this point. "I'm very sorry. Could you please repeat that question again?" "Fine. Can you name the major powers during the Australia Continental War?" If we're talking about major powers, then the first country to come to mind would be the Draznel Empire, the most powerful country. But we can't also leave out its neighbor who could match its might, the Sephiroth Kingdom. In terms of countries that all its neighbors had to be wary of, there was the Holy Walpurgis Empire. This was the only country without its own army, as all of its citizens were black-hearted. On the other hand, if we're talking about countries that specialized in their military, there were the Helvetica Republic and the Fornade Kingdom. In particular, the latter was also referred to as the Overnight Kingdom, as it was founded by building a castle on a single night. Huh? Wow. How strange. You even listed countries that were not in the textbook. The teacher muttered something under his breath that did not reach the student's ears. On the other hand, Leticiel was simply reciting information she saw and heard during her previous life. After all, she lived during the Australia Continental War. There was nobody more knowledgeable about that time period than her in the room. All the countries she had listed just now were ones that held real power in the central region. She hadn't included any countries from the remote regions. While most of the countries listed were around for a long time, there were cases of countries like the Fornade Kingdom, which were crushed within 10 years of its founding by an alliance of major powers. It was natural that countries like these didn't remain in history. Incidentally, Leticiel's Rise and Rose Kingdom was also quite a powerful kingdom in the remote regions, or at least it was comparable to the neighboring Zelride Kingdom. I think your explanation was a bit too detailed, but it seems that you've prepared for the lesson properly. Well then, please turn to the next page. The teacher returned to the lesson while quizzically scratching his neck. Leticiel once again lowered her gaze back to the textbook. There was too much history and information she didn't know about in this age. It seemed like there were still mountains of things she needed to investigate.